First of all, that's me. That's me again. Quick question. How many people here are into sports? One hand. How many people? That's nice. How many people are into blockchain? Second hand. Now you know why we made the logo of Fantastec the way we made the logo, because that's how we do it. I'm very fortunate to be the managing partner of a group of women and men that are really into one issue and one issue only, and that's how to connect the worldwide people that love sports, enjoy sports, but quite frankly, they're a little bit further away from their sports than they typically would like to be. They may not attend it, so they have to catch it online or do something else with it. But there's got to be something more, got to be something deeper. We're in love with the problem, but not necessarily the solution. But 24 months ago, Charlie and I were talking, we kind of came across blockchain, and that's when I became an evangelist. You know, they say that you should hire people smarter than you, and I can guarantee you the first meeting I was in about blockchain, I was definitely the dumbest person in the room. I may still be the dumbest person in the room when it comes to blockchain, but I can ask all the right questions and go to the right places. So what we did at Fantastec is we started thinking about that problem and what are the best solutions that can be put towards the sports fans around the world. And some of those questions I'd like to put towards you, because to me, the real question is, can blockchain really be that game changer? Can blockchain really be the thing that changes sports for the good, for the future? And there's so many different areas that it can touch on and dip into. I just want to touch on just a few of them to talk to you about. First thing is performance. It's interesting about performance. I apologize, sharing. First thing about sharing is you'll see two really distinctive sides, right? You'll see the photo as it happens at matches now, and you'll see a little bit of the coverage from the media that potentially they don't like the way that things are turning out. But in the same way, each one of the speakers up here had cameras pointed at them at different times. It's something we all have to get used to. We have to know. We have to understand. But can blockchain play a role in that? Can blockchain play a role because it's going towards this way? Well, you may know that there's a company out in the western United States that has gotten together with 6 different arenas, and they decided that, you know what, we've got thousands of photographers at events now. We're going to have thousands more. The cameras and the smartphones are getting better. The actual process of taking those photos, people are getting better at. They're looking for the better things. But how can people make money off that? So they got together with Kodak, an old school company technically, and they formed Kodak One. And Kodak One is a blockchain platform that they now have at a half dozen arenas, where if you take that superb photo, you take that superb picture, you want to upload it right in the stadium and put it on their blockchain, you can get money back from that when people use it, whether it's a newspaper outlet or whether it's somebody else. You can actually monetize it from it. So it's potentially one area where the blockchain can tickle into the fan sharing aspect of it. Performance was the other one that I really thought was interesting and I wanted to talk to you about, and 2 examples here. You see the gentleman here that's in a half red uniform and a half blue uniform. His name's Kirk Cousins. He's an American Football League quarterback. He went from the red team, the Washington Redskins, to the blue team, the Minnesota Vikings, and he got the biggest contract in the history of quarterbacks of the NFL. But you know what doesn't really work out with that is if you look at the official NFL statistics in front here, where do you see Kirk Cousins' name? It's not at the top. So why did he get more guaranteed money than anybody else? Why did he get a better deal up front than anybody has ever seen in the history of sports in moving from one team to another team? Because although these are the official NFL statistics, ranking all the active passers and stuff, it wasn't the statistics that him and his team used to negotiate their agreement. In fact, they had other statistics. They had other things that they wanted this team to look at. And so it started me thinking about a problem, an issue, a challenge, and the challenge being that who owns that data? And who's really going to do something with that data in the right way? And I'll shift that over to just a couple, I think it was 10 days ago or less, Rodrigo, you know, youngest guy to ever score 3 goals in a Champions League match, right? What a wonderful performance. And so then you see all the newspapers, all the media filled with, well, who is this young guy? How did he do this? And where did he come from? And what came from? And then you start to see other stories behind it that says, you know what? We liked him. We looked at him when he was a young guy, but we didn't believe the statistics about his career. We didn't believe that he was that fast. We didn't believe he could score that many goals. And so all of a sudden you start to see one of the issues in sports in reference to performance, individual performance, is we're certainly better today than we were many years ago at capturing that data, but the ownership of that data, the manipulation of that data is becoming an issue. So what if there was such a thing as a sports passport that you had from a young child, if you like sport A or sport B, and all of your data was entered into it and it stayed with you and it got transferred with you, and so you knew it and you had it. And it was realms and realms of data, so no matter where anybody wanted to go, if they wanted to go into the deep details like what happened with Kirk Cousins, or if they wanted to go back and check on Rodrigo when he was 12 years old and he did something special. You had that, and you could put that. And that's another answer that potentially blockchain could have in the sports world. This is my personal favorite, ownership, right? So if you're into sports, you're trying to look for all these future fans that are all around the world. They're growing, they're doing different things. We all know they're consuming sports in a different way than what maybe you and I ever consume sports. The interesting thing is then you're a sports team. And for that sports team, you have a situation, right? You have been in a 10-year battle where on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Weibo, WeChat, Snapchat, TikTok, anything, you name it, whatever the platform is, you've been trying to create as many fans as you can to impress your bosses. So you now have 100 million fans around the world, 200 million fans around the world. But you're not monetizing those fans. In fact, you don't even own those fans, right? So your biggest market you don't own. Some platform owns those fans. And some platform has 100% of the data, and they're giving you a little bit of the data, maybe a little bit more of the data, but they're not giving you all the data, that's for sure. Equally, you don't know what's going to happen when they take your fan and show them your post that you've made, what they're going to show them next. It could be a Pepsi ad, it could be a Tony Robbins commercial, it could be something, from BBC News that's breaking. You don't own that user experience. And where would you want your biggest quantity of fans, where would you want that when they don't own that experience? Wouldn't you want to own that experience? So you've got a real big issue here. And I think a blockchain platform is one way to bring those fans back home and to get them closer to the team, get them better connected to the team, and to have them have a better relationship and a better experience with the team. I think that's really a big thing that the teams are going to really solve quickly, and it'll come like a waterfall when it happens. Along the same lines, most of us are aware of that on Saturday and Sunday, I'll call it as a generalization, sports, live sports, it's worth a tremendous amount of money. But does anybody really think about that on Monday to Thursday, Monday to Friday, it's worth nothing, that same broadcast, right? So the replays that they have, the archives that they have, whether it's near-term or far-term archives, it's worth very little. Well, why is it worth very little? Because in the sports world, they've got such complex agreements between regions, between broadcasters, between rights, between historical rights, legacy rights, between new rights, between digital rights. It's hard for them to maneuver. Well, a smart contract could maneuver that quite easy, quite frankly. And a smart contract could resolve some of this. And a smart contract in that obstance that I said earlier about bringing fans home could actually do that in a better way, in a smarter way for sports teams. So for me, this is another way that blockchain could play a role to come into the sports atmosphere and straighten out some things that aren't right. And you start to get the idea here that I'm only partly way through my letters of sports, and automatically there's ways that sports can start to get a little bit better, a little bit smarter in reference to how blockchain can utilize it and make that a better game. It was Brad Pitt that initially made all of us think about that in the old world, if you've seen that movie Moneyball, they would select a player based upon somebody's instinct. They would select a player based upon somebody's, liked him or liked his friend or used to play with him or something like that. And then statistics came into it. Data came into it, right? So they made it a little bit more famous. But isn't it interesting that an industry that's over $1 billion, that they still do it in this old-fashioned way? They scrutinize the athlete. They give them the physical. They take some time. They do some strength tests. And then maybe the worst thing of all is they shake hands and they fax a contract. They fax. Anybody still have a fax? Well done if you do. Oh, one of them. Thank you. You got it. You probably got a contract coming through, or you're an agent. Either one. But I just think that's so funny because again the transparency isn't there. What happened in the last contract? What was the personal agreement that the newspapers alluded to that nobody got into? What were the historical medical issues with this athlete? What were those things? Why can't we be transparent with that? Why can't we be open with that? Now that in some leagues they have athletes actually wearing data, Why can't we have access to that data if I'm going to pay this athlete $100 million plus over a couple seasons? I certainly would want it as a business owner, and I think people are going to start demanding it. And I think you're going to start seeing it more transparent in that respect and more transparent going ahead. Now, full hands up on this one, right? I'm going to talk about one of our products, but I want to talk about this product because I want you to see how it's coming together from a blockchain perspective. The first thing that happens in this instance is we've built a product on a blockchain backbone where you take an old disruptive formula that was probably not eco-friendly. It's, if you've ever played it, the tops or Panini's Top Trumps or anything like that, you played in the school ground, you traded with friends. But we thought, you know what, the fans are all over the world. They're not just in my playground. So how can we give them the same trust, the same transparency as trading with somebody in your playground? And this is what we built on the blockchain over the last 18 months. And we just launched it with a couple of the teams at this football season and stuff. But the interesting thing is that what it's done is brought people in and closer to their teams than they've ever had before because we have live data going through this. So within 10 seconds of a goal being scored or an assist happening, it's up on our platform. We have different activities that people can do on these platforms where players give their autographs, right? And you may not think much about it, but autographs that are out there in the public, they're either fake typically or they're not authenticated, right? So how can a kid in Shanghai or a kid in San Francisco know that this is real and true and everything like that? Well, I'm going to run a little 90-second film for you that can show you how this all pulls together. And when it pulls together, you'll notice how we did it with the blockchain and made it work. And that just gives you one answer to the solution of the problem that we're trying to figure out here.
We are the collectors, and we're obsessed. Every game, every weekend, home or away, kickoff is our time, ours to claim. Goals, assists, every fight for the ball. From the very first match, we've collected them all. Stats for each movement, the cards, free kicks. The rewards are the memories, pure majesty on pitch. We collect chances straining to see. Glory. Without us to collect, there is no history. Banners on balconies and post-match highlights. YouTube rants and phone-ins at night.
Absolutely unbelievable.
New shirts, new signings, graffiti on walls. Player after player, an endless scroll. We rack up the miles in pursuit of our team. We create friendships, loyalty, unity. We collect countries, cities, towns and lanes. A collective will that never fades. An endless, dutiful march to the whistle. From shrines of self-belief and matchday ritual. We collect anticipation. For the love of our club, what we collect makes us fans. We are the collectors. Together we stand.
So again, I apologize for the overt commercial in that respect, but I wanted to let you see firsthand the best example I can give you today of blockchain transforming an industry, that digital collectibles was growing. You saw all the things we showed with sharing. You saw the things we showed with swapping. It's growing, and so the teams need to take advantage of that with their 100 million people around the world. This is something that they can do, exchange things with each other. But it just leads to the initial question, bringing it all the way back. I think blockchain really, truly is the game changer for sports as we go forward. Thank you very much for your time.